guys should hit me up. I could have done at least a show for him just to differentiate.
I'm telling you right now, I don't really care a ton about baseball, but if the Yankees blow this game, I'm not sure I will get over it. Just saying that right now. To everyone listening, to society, if the Yankees blow this game, 6-0 in the third inning, I will not be happy.
Third inning, Ben? You're just setting yourself up now.
Judge has 2 home runs and a grand slam already. This is like Flames
Third inning?
up 3-0 in the first period. And I look. Well, look what we've got here. I had a lot of people say, you're not doing a golf show tonight, are you? There's only 30 golfers. And I said, honestly, maybe we shouldn't have, but we're here. And you know what? No better time to break down the Tour Championship than right now at Stokastic. I am Ben Rasa. I'm joined, of course, for the entire year by Geoff Ulrich. We are ready to go. There may only be 30 golfers. They may not be a ton to talk about, but whatever we can find, whatever edges we can look at in our tools, we are going to do that tonight. We're going to have some fun. We've got an exciting deal with Caesars we're going to get to in a little bit. But as always, Geoff Ulrich, what's the deal? How we doing?
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
Last week was what it was. It was real. I mean, look, Victor Hovland is definitely taking a step up. I mean, that was like Victor Hovland kind of saved that event because it was. If he doesn't shoot that round, I mean, what are we really talking about? Scotty Scheffler winning and just like Rory not doing anything again? Probably the boringest event of the year. So Hovland saved it. I didn't make any money off it, of course, but because I did bet Rory going into round 3 because I liked his odds. It was between him and Hovland, and of course I picked Rory. But that's my stupidity. Hovland is just on it seems like a nuclear path right now, man. I mean, it's very impressive, and I think it's something to just take note of. And if he has a little dip again, just remember this because I mean, like his high end right now is better than I would say almost anyone's or as good as anyone's. So it gets Rahm-esque. I would put. I don't think that's hyperbole. So that's the big takeaway for me. Other than that event, it kind of sucks. Like honestly, I mean, whatever it is, it's a 50-man event. I didn't not pumped up about the playoffs, but this week's a little bit more interesting at least because we get the handicap. I guess I think for betting is a little bit more interesting, but DFS too, right? So. That's my take on the BMW.
That's fair. So, one, course, really wasn't that difficult. No. Olympia Field, oh my God, it really wasn't that difficult. Hovland, I forgot that I had said this, and then Aton reminded me. I was joking on putting for dough over on OddsShopper.
I saw your video.
Yeah, he does have that. Him and Scheffler, they just have the Mario Kart. You just automatically catch up because Hovland had no chance. And then you look, you're just like, oh, Hovland's in 4th. Like, that's weird. And then he made 8 threes on the back 9. Like, what exactly is that? You mentioned he's now in that if everyone has, I don't want to say like if everyone plays their A game because, you go peak Rahm versus peak Rory. But when Hovland is on like that, it seems like there's almost nothing you can do.
You know what? It reminded me of when Jon Rahm won the Tour Championship at the start, or the Players Champ, whatever the fuck it's called, Tournament of Champions at the start of the year. That's the same thing. He just went so crazy nuts, and like you said, he literally had no chance. I mean, there was a point in the event where you're like, he's like, you can't.
No, it's not possible.
It's not possible, and he did it. And it's not even that Scheffler like blew it. He didn't convert down the stretch, but he didn't blow it. Hovland literally won it out of nowhere. So crazy by him. Certainly, again, I almost hope he like plays terrible this week and like maybe makes a false start and doesn't play well, just so we can get better numbers on him. So his upside has definitely been unleashed this year. It's good to see.
I got one other point. I'd rather not bring it up, but I feel like we should because I think it's related certainly to last week, a little to this week, and to the Ryder Cup. We were both, and I'll take the big L. Tony Finau is just really not playing well. I thought that set up perfectly for him. A 37th, just bad putting, lost off the tee a little bit. It feels like not only is he just playing poorly, that his Ryder Cup chances are really dwindling at this point.
Yeah, dwindling for sure, because again, like he has the veteran status. Like he's played in a bunch of international events now. So like there's reason for them to take him. He's got the power game, but like what's the purpose of taking Tony Finau if he sucks off the tee? Because his putter is just so up and down, like you don't know what you're gonna get. I would say his chances are very slim to none at this point.
It's slow.
Obviously we still have this week, but like, yeah, that I agree. I mean, we both took an L. I really just thought Finau would pop up, but I've kind of thought that all year. I mean, I haven't invested in Finau every week, but I've certainly invested him in a couple spots, and it's been not good. Like the majors, I mean, it's really kind of just a letdown year. A bit easily the biggest letdown for me. I thought Finau was going to break through this year. I thought challenge at a major at the very least. I know he got the Mexico win, but I mean, like, whatever, So yeah, big letdown for him for sure.
Yeah, just disappointing. And again, we'll see. But before we do that, I do want to give a couple quick shout outs. Let's start with Rainmakers. Always, again, I say it every week. Couple different things that you guys need to know. One, the best part, there's a free pack waiting for you in the links below over at DraftKings. You see it there. Even if you don't play a lot on the format, even if you don't know what it is, it's always worth getting the free pack, and it's always worth checking out that format, because with the NFL here, you're going to be saying, what the hell is going on? There's massive prize pools. I wish I kind of paid attention to that. So I just want to give them a shout out. Again, we got an action-packed show today. We're going to be talking about all sorts of good deals for you, and one of them always is Rainmaker. So shout out to them. But let's talk about it. 30 players remain. East Lake is East Lake. We go here every year. We know what's going on. We're going to lump in the course, and we're going to lump in kind of, this is a unique event. You have guys starting, if you're unfamiliar, with strokes. So can you kind of talk that through and then just tie it into East Lake for us?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, if you're unfamiliar with the format or whatever, it's handicap starting strokes. So Scheffler's starting at 10. There's 5 guys starting at even, and there's a bunch of players in between. The top 5 guys are the biggest advantage because you've got Rahm at 6, Rory at 7, Hovland at 8, right behind them. So, you know where your guys are starting. I mean, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but like a guy starting at 4 versus 2, especially for DFS. I mean, we've got some big salary gaps. A guy like Xander Schauffele, for example, you see him at 10-5. He's actually starting, I'm pretty sure, in like the -2 or 3. I can't even remember now. Again, this is all going sideways, but he's starting lower down. So like realize that. And there's other guys like Tommy Fleetwood, who's the same price and starting at the same number as Xander Schauffele. So that's the first thing, how it works. And just remember, again, for DFS, for DraftKings, all these points are figured in. So Scheffler's basically starting in first with the first place points. He's not starting with 10 birdies, but he's starting with the placement points. So the placement points counts, the handicap counts. You don't get the birdies or anything, but just take that in mind because it's obviously a huge advantage for a player like Scottie Scheffler and McIlroy and Hovland to be up there. So
that's the thing. I just want to drill down to that point quickly. It's kind of like that Sunday showdown mentality. You get the placement points embedded, but if you play like shit, not only are you going to lose those points, you also played terrible. Yep. So you're kind of fully correlating it. So that is important to recognize, because you are given this placement. You haven't earned it this week. You've earned it throughout the year.
Yeah. And now, here's like I'll go over a couple trends for this tournament too, because I spent a bunch of time on Sunday going over it. So the first place finisher here, I don't think the last 4 years for sure, they never finished worse than second. So that's something to consider. That the guy in first has always done well. The second place finisher, though, has actually struggled here. Like, they finished outside the top 5 numerous times. Like, I think 3 out of 4 years, the last 4 years. That doesn't mean you just fade Viktor Hovland. I'm just giving you some stuff that's happened. We've also seen someone from -2 finish in the top 5 each of the 5 years of the handicap. So again, that -2 has kind of been the threshold. There's never been someone from like even that's made the huge run, but there's always been someone from -2 to -4 that's made a run into the top 5, even top 3. Like Xander's done it. Kevin Na started from way back one year, a couple names like that. So something to keep in mind. We've always had like a runner like that. And, the top guys generally finish first or second. And it's kind of been all over the place. Rory won at -4 last year. He came back and won. Scheffler finished second. He started first. So, it can happen, but I would say like the winner's threshold 4 to 5, and we had a special player do it in McIlroy. But, there's room for movement around that like 6-2 under range. That's what we've seen.
And just to add context, there are no situations where you have 72 holes to make up ground. And I think that's where it gets confusing to people, because they look and you're like, oh my God, the guy's 8 shots back. How is he going to catch someone who's 8? Yeah, if it's Sunday, that's when we're traditionally looking at that. It's really hard to make up 8 shots in 18 holes. You have 72 holes. You can chip away. It's to Scheffler. If Scheffler doesn't play good, everyone else is pretty bunched. There's a lot of room to move up and down this board. And by the weekend, there will be guys who have gotten themselves into position to have a charge, who are 5 back, 4 back, 6 back. And that's all you need with 36 holes left. So we absolutely see that. Still does help if you're Scottie Scheffler, you're the best player, one of the best players in the world. You're now 10 under. That is a good mentality. The last thing I want to talk about before we talk about the top tier, I think you would agree, you want to consider really leaving some unique salaries on the table this week. Dupes are everywhere. If you go with a very generic lineup, you will be duped dozens of times depending on what the build is.
Yeah, and I think that's like the main thing. Building a lineup that's going to get duped by like 10 other lineups is definitely something you say, well, if you get duped by like one lineup or two, you
got to live with that.
It's a 30-man field. You probably, like you said, especially if you like the lineup and you think it's like, an efficient one, just go with it. But certainly looking for areas and opportunities to be unique is just a big part of the game. Anyone lower owned this week who's projecting with low ownership is really valuable, and you need to really take a look at, and we'll obviously go through that. There's a couple names I picked out who I just think will be, definitely just lower owned, which is going to be really good. And obviously lower owned, we're talking like 15 to 5% range. You're not going to get like a 1%er or anything like that. So, don't expect that, but that's what we'll be looking at. So
get to the top tier. Let's talk about these guys. We'll talk about them from a betting standpoint as well in just a little bit, because we got some news over there. But I want to talk about certainly the unique structure. Scottie Scheffler kicks off at 13,400. He's also 10 under. Rory, 13,000. He's right there as well. Hovland, 12.5. Rahm, 11.6. We'll start with those 4. I just want to say this right off the bat, and then we can get into them. If you play Scheffler and Rory together, there is no combination where you will not be duped. No matter what your other 4 players are, there just aren't enough combinations.
Yeah.
If you play them together, your lineups will be duped automatically. If you do that, what do you make of kind of your starting point this week? How do you construct a very unique situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny. Like you pick, you've got to roll with your guy at the top.
Yeah. I
mean, if you think Viktor Hovland's going to win this event, you've got to play Victor. And I would say, like, on top of that, probably fade Scheffler and McIlroy along with it. I just think that you've got to live with it. Like, unless you feel so strongly, like maybe you've got different exposure, like you've got a big bankroll and you're putting like a bunch in the 25 and you just want that combo in case it's first and second. But like especially for like a single entry, I would feel better about trying to just make a unique lineup. So I think that's the first thing, is trying to figure out who you want at the top and then going from there. But it's really like, it's one of those weeks where, you almost just don't need to think about like, oh, who do I think is going to win? It's just about like, construction is just so big this week, where you're just trying to like structure your lineups in a certain type of way to give yourself a unique build, and telling yourself a story of how the event's going to go. Do you think Scheffler is going to end up in like outside the top 5? Are you going to play for that? Well, then play Vic or Rory over them and sit Scheffler out. If you think Scheffler is going to be first or second, play them, avoid the 2 underneath him. That's kind of the mentality that I think that I would look at the top. It's just so hard to construct unique lineups if you're doubling up like in the top 4, well, top 3 especially. Rahm is probably okay-ish, but that's the big deal for me. I would be looking at those top 3 and really trying to make a stand as my first order of business.
It's certainly, because again, you have to try to balance. There are scenarios, I honestly think, where Scheffler comes in like 3rd and he's actively bad for you because he's starting at 10 under. He's not getting the birdies that are associated with how he got there. So you may even think, man, these guys are going to be right there. that is not the case. You almost have to build like independently of the strokes and then change it a little bit at the end, depending on where guys start, because I think that you could get into trouble there. I agree. You want to make your stand with one of them. But as we work down, I mean, in the betting market, Scheffler is just north of even money. You're seeing like plus 130 out there. Obviously, Rory and Hovland are right there, but Jon Rahm is nearly 9-1. I bet him this week. I think he's got a real shot. He's clearly playing the worst of the guys that we've mentioned already. But there wasn't a time, you mentioned Century, but you could talk to me about the first 3 months of the season, and Jon Rahm looked like he was on a breakaway to be -10 in the Tour Championship. He was destroying. What do you make of him this week, both in a betting standpoint and maybe as a starting point in DFS?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rahm makes a lot of I mean, I think for the betting, it just makes a lot of sense just taking that number. I mean, we've got like, you know, if you want to throw Hovland in there, sure, we've got 4 elite players in their own tier. I was, you know, for the most part, it's been Scheffler, McIlroy, Rahm, and that top tier. And we're getting a big break to take one of them. Like, that makes a ton of sense. And I think translating that to DFS, the same kind of deal. You know, people are just, oh, how can Scottie Scheffler lose this? How can Scottie Scheffler not have a good week? Well, he can have an okay week and, like you said, not be good for DFS because he's so expensive. And if he falls out of the placing points, it's going to be a big deal. But Rahm, on the other hand, you know, not going to, like, I don't think he's going to be very popular. I'm just trying to bring up his ownership. I can't even find him here. There he is. Yeah. You know, like probably going to be kind of just medium or even like under the average ownership for us projection wise. So I think Rahm makes a lot of sense. And I think especially if you're looking to double dip at the top, like Rahm would be a player I just would absolutely almost have to have because of the salary and the ownership. I just think that mix makes him a perfect second man in. I think you could start with him as well. It's just that I think that build is a little bit riskier, but I definitely like Rahm this week. I think he's just like a key player. You could make the same argument for Homa, I think, who's, you know, in a pretty good starting spot, but we're not talking about the same kind of player, obviously. He's really good and he could win this week, but you know, like the upside with Rahm is just immense. So, and there's just not that big a gap in salary between the two either.
No, there really isn't. And then it becomes fascinating quickly because then you have guys that are legitimate top end players, but they're going to be the popular chasers. They're going to be the guys that could easily get in the mix, but they're not set up perfectly. And who I'm talking about is Patrick Cantlay. He starts at 4 under. Xander, who is the Tour Championship guru, at 3 under. They're both north of 10K. You got 10,500, 10,800. And then Fitzy, who kind of like, I don't know, maybe from the clouds kind of emerged. I'm not sure how many people, I think starting with them is very doubtful. Second man in, very reasonable. What do you make of those 3 and kind of how do you see that kind of shaking out?
I mean, I like these guys. Like, I'm as much as I like Rahm, I mean, it almost feels like Homa, Fitzpatrick, Xander will get some ownership because he's just, his course history here is so insane. But Homa especially, like, I really like. I mean, I know I just, you know, talked down, like, obviously Rahm's upside, but like we're talking about, you know, just like ownership and stuff. I just don't think a lot of people are going to be able to fit in Max Homa to make the lineup they want. And I think he's going to be like potentially definitely a bottom 10 owned player and maybe a bottom 5 owned player. And again, like, it's not a regular week. Like, all the guys who are going to be projected to be the highest owned are going to be like between 7 and 5K. So, you know, the inverse of that is that these guys at the top are just so hard to fit in. I think a lot of people are going to leave Homa on the bench. So I really like that. I think Homa's playing well too. His putter's heated up. He's good off the tee. He was good here. I think it was last season. He's played here a couple times. I like Homa in this range. I like him over Xander for sure. And, you know, if you're going to play like a kind of, you know, a double tap at the top, I mean, Hovland, Homa, Rahm, Homa is pretty interesting to me. I mean, I think that's the kind of build that I would be looking to get. I don't know if I'd want to start with Homa. I mean, and I kind of like Cantlay for similar reasons, but I think Homa will, just looking at our projections now, potentially get a little bit lower ownership, although it should be pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, ownership is going to be, and not that it isn't always, but even more so this week. the player themselves is almost irrelevant. It's almost all about the salary. Like when you build, there are guys that make no sense salary wise for the way that you construct. That is why these guys in the 5K range are just gold. Like even if you don't like them whatsoever, you're like, oh, I need this guy so desperately. So the mid-range is going to get absolutely walloped in some of these. There will be guys that are kind of low owned in that regard. And we're going to get to them right now, actually, as we work to the mid-range. Before we do that, though, I mentioned that I bet Jon Rahm. And this is actually true. It's not just connecting to the read, but it kind of is. I bet him over at Caesars. And part of the reason I did that is because Caesars is on my mind. It's on everybody's mind right now because they launched a big time offer for football. Why? Why do you think? They want people to sign up and play over there. They're a reputable book, though. And to get you over there, they have a bonus for people who are new users. It's in the link below. We're going to put it on the screen. New users, you go to Caesars. You take a couple minutes. You sign up. You bet $50. You could put it on Rahm if you want. You put it on anything. And win or lose, you are going to get $250 in bonus bets as a weekly cumulative. So what does that mean? Every week, you get a $50 bet. I believe it's on Mondays. You're going to get that 5 times. So each week, you can look forward to that $50 free bet from Caesars. So for the $50 that you bet, and you could win that first bet, obviously, but even if you lose, you're going to get 5 shots to redeem yourself. It's simple, it's easy, and it's obviously a great time of year. College football starts Saturday. NFL is going to be here. It wouldn't be the worst thing to have an extra $250 in bonus bets and an opportunity. You got to be 21 plus. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. The link is below. I'm telling you, take advantage. My man Mike just threw it in chat. No better time to add some money to that bankroll. But as we work down, when I said some guys are going to be lost, I mean, I'm not looking to play him, but who in their right mind is playing Lucas Glover? I feel like he is completely lost. He's old news. He did, last week was last week. Him and Harmon and Clark, I feel like, are in the dead zone. Do you agree with that as we talk about the mid-range?
Yeah, because it's just impossible to fit these guys in.
It's impossible.
We just talked about double dipping in the 10K range. How in the hell are you going to fit in Lucas Glover
at
9,700 when you've done that, to be contrarian? And Brian Harmon, at 9,500. So these guys are interesting. I mean, but you've got to alter your build to do it. You've got to, basically play that Lucas Glover can come in like top 3 this week or something and like take on Hovland or take on Scheffler and be the guy that can potentially make the run. So you're really like, you're basically adjusting your build to fit in one of these guys. And I don't think many people, and just nobody wants to do that. Why would you want to do that at 9,700 with Lucas Glover? So it's building with them is super weird. But at the same time, like the ownership, the leverage you get is just, it's immense if Lucas Glover like actually wins this or something. So if I was going to, it's funny, like if I was going to take a shot with one of these 3, it actually would be Glover. He just won on a Donald Ross course. He's the guy who's just been, he's figured out his game. He just feels like he's in a really good spot. Harmon played okay last week, but this course is longer. He gained it all around the greens. Clark also played well. He would be my second favorite in this range, but if I was going to take a shot with one of these guys, it'd be Glover. I think he's going to be the lowest owned player. Like I said, he's got that confidence, still got the Ryder Cup. It's crazy, and it's, nobody wants to do it, but that's the benefit. So, this is it's a tough range. Glover is the one who I would have the most interest for me, and I think that like from just a build spot, I have some interest.
This is one of these like, wait, what did he say? But it's kind of true. If Glover was even more expensive, I would like him even more. Yeah, because he would be legitimately like unplayable if he was like,
he'd be like 1% owned.
And it's just weird. The guy is starting at 5 under. Like, do I think he's going to win? Absolutely not. But I didn't think Lucas Glover was going to win back-to-back events in any fashion. So it can clearly happen. And I second your thoughts. I think a lot of people are going to group Glover, Harmon, and Clark just in the same, like, oh, those guys.
Yeah.
I separate them completely. I don't like Harmon whatsoever on this course. I think this is an objectively bad setup. You mentioned Glover. I think Wyndham Clark's just kind of an enigma. I don't really know what he can do. But to me, Glover is the one that I want to target because I think most people are going to try to, if they're right around there, they're going to go get Ricky or Fleetwood or Sanjay, who's someone we've both been on. Sanjay hasn't won, but he's been playing damn good golf.
Yeah. I mean, again, like if you take Fleetwood, you're either it forces you to like basically cut yourself off at like 10K, or it forces you, like you said, to skip all the really tempting guys in the 8K range who I do want to target. Like I want Henley, I want him. Like these guys are at good prices. They're not starting at even, and they're good players and they're playing really well. So like I don't want to skip that whole range, but you got to make a choice. Like, are you going to double dip up top? Are you going to, take the insane leverage with Glover or are you just going to avoid that and try to differentiate elsewhere? It's really and that's the problem. It's really hard to to get uniqueness without Glover. I mean, there's maybe another way you can do it with another guy we'll get to, but I think Glover is. Yeah, I mean, I would just want a piece of him. And actually, we didn't really talk enough about Fitzpatrick. He's kind of in a similar spot, so I think both those guys are pretty interesting.
Yeah, there is another way to do it. Justin just mentioned this in chat. I think this is an absolutely reasonable way to do it. And I also think this is an absolutely reasonable way that this has almost no chance of working. But this week, both those statements can work. If you just skip all the top, and you hope that the course plays like comically easy, where you can really move up the board over 72 holes, the value of the placement points is minimal, you'll be very unique. The problem is just the chances that Rory, Scheffler, Hovland, and Rahm one of them doesn't play good enough to win and be needed is so low. So it's just a perfect risk reward for a large field tournament, but it's also not realistic. And I think that's just kind of the nature of a 30-man field.
And that's kind of why I mentioned off the top. I feel like you have to almost just side with one of those guys like that, at least one of them. But because even if they don't win, one of them's probably going to play well enough to like have so many birdie points or something that they'll factor in anyways. But yeah, that's it. Again, everything is on the table this week. Like there's nothing that we can't discuss. I mean, this is insane stuff. So yeah, but I agree with that sentiment in the chat. Like you can certainly do that. And that gives you access to guys like Glover. Like you can double dip in that range. I mean, you can get really crazy. And I think that alone is like worth it this week, just because of how much you'd gain over the field if that works out.
And it's not just ownership of one player that I think is really where I guess you could call it the edge comes in. The ownership between multiple guys in the mid-range together is so incredibly low because the only way to get them is to omit other areas, and people aren't going to do that. So you have to kind of think about it like that. Like not even, I'm going to play Glover. Like what percent of lineups have Glover and Fitzpatrick? 1%? Like, yeah,
it might be under 1%, like honestly.
And that's what I mean. So
absolutely.
That's kind of the way to leverage. Whether now to do that, you have to do some real disturbing things. But
it's very disturbing.
Very, very that's the theme of our show here. I do want to ask you about the last couple guys in the 8K range, in this mid-range. You mentioned Henley and Keegan. Keegan's another, he's got some Ryder Cup buzz, can drive the ball. Not, miscut at the Open, 43rd at St. Jude, 29th last week. Yeah, what do you make of him, and what do you make of your boy, Mr. Henley?
Yeah, Keegan is the other name that I was going to throw out. It just feels like, again, Fleetwood, Henley, and then you got Tom Kim under him, Connors. It's just, again, people would normally, I think, look at Keegan in a normal tournament and where there's other, just ways that you can kind of double up and there's no starting strokes. And they'd probably, his ownership would get a little bit up just because he'll help you be unique. But in this tournament, you can't really afford to do that. You can't like double dip there. So people aren't going to be clicking him just to the fact he's in a strong range. But he's not projecting with much ownership. So that's just another name that could potentially help you in that regard. I don't love him at all. I really like Russell Henley's chances this week. That's a player I bet in like a bunch of different markets.
Okay.
I just think it's a good course. He played really well here before. So that's the player I'm kind of siding with here. But, again, if you get Henley and Keegan, I mean, that kind of balances itself out, and then you can go from there. So, from an ownership perspective, Keegan is valuable this week, unfortunately. But again, it's just a week where you can't really, you almost just have to not look at the names. Just like not even look who you're clicking. You're just like, okay, this guy's probably going to be like half the ownership of this guy, and he's starting here, and I need to use him. So
you could say this with a lot of golf. I know some people that kind of argue this no matter what, but more so, this is, I think, the number one week where you can lose before the tournament starts or win. Like, it doesn't mean it's going to translate into money, but you can look at your lineups once it locks before a shot is hit and be like, I really screwed up, or I may not win, but I did as good as I could. And that goes with kind of what you're talking about of just blindly saying, I'm going to lean on the tools. I'm going to lean on kind of the game theory aspect of it. Is there a guy, I mean, because again, if you're building a bunch of lineups, it's very reasonable to play every single player. I don't think that that's crazy.
Yeah.
When you look, for me, Brian Harman jumps out as a guy I don't want in my pool if I'm going to omit someone. I'm not sure really anyone else we've talked about I feel that strongly about. Is there anyone else that you want to give a quick shout out to in a bad way as we move into the 7K range?
It's a good way to go about it, actually. Harman definitely, of the players we've gotten to so far, top of the list. We haven't gotten down to like, I mean,
I hadn't.
Yeah. Some of these guys would be like fades for me just because they're going to be so popular, but at the same time, they would be like complete fades.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Day in a no cut event where he lost 10 strokes ball striking last week. If he was 6,400, I would say, okay, fine. I understand mixing him in, but he's 74. He's Jason Day. So like, who the hell knows? But, and there's probably other people who feel this way. So he's going to have some value, but it'd be a pretty tough sell for Jason Day for me. And then, I feel like there's one other player. I mean, Taylor Moore was a disaster last week too. Those would be the other two players just in this field that I'd be concerned about. But, again, we're talking about recent form. Like, Day has the injury thing and the pregnancy thing. If you're not know, his wife's about to give birth to like his 5th kid or something. But he said he's not going to withdraw. So there's just concerns with Day.
Last word.
If this was any other event, I would not play Moore or Day, but because it's 30 man, you have to consider everyone. So, like form, I don't want to say form doesn't matter more than ownership, but like ownership is a big thing this week. And those two will be low owned. So I would just not be like super pumped about it, I guess. Shares here or there, but that would be it for me.
Yeah, I'm in line. If I could cut one person out of my pool, it would be Taylor Moore. If I could cut two, it would be Brian Harman. I'm not sure what I would do after that. Those two are guys I objectively just don't like the fit for. After that, it becomes like this guy's over popular. And like you said, you can take 12% of a very popular guy and hope that he withdraws or plays terrible. But I don't know if I'd want a full fade. You open yourself up in a 30-man to full bagel if you do that. If you're willing to lose 100%, have at it. But I told you before the show, and this is a true story. One year for this exact event, I built 150 and I played 29 golfers and I didn't play Ches and he made a hole in one. And you can predict how that ended for me. And that is true. Now I'm still here complaining about it years later, but let's talk about the last 10 guys and then we'll build some lineups and we'll get out of here. Let's go to the salary savers. We've got Colin Morikawa and Tony Finau. We got names. There's no doubt. Ty Hatton, Jordan Spieth is in the 6K range.
Yeah.
I mean, Griot and Shank and Nick Taylor, these types, you're going to need them. Even if you don't like them, you need these players. Where are you drawn to for our last man in?
Yeah, I mean, look, like all these guys, or not all of them, but a lot of them are projecting to be like in the top 10 owned players this week. So, don't be shocked when you click on Ty Hatton and like, he's like 35% owned or something. So yeah, we need these players. Obviously Spieth has a really good course history here. Ty Hatton, his game has fallen off, but it's a big money week at the Ryder Cup coming up. Surely he wants to get some form before that happens. Sam Burns I understand why everyone likes Sam Burns. I like Sam Burns. I wrote him at the start of the week, and then I realized, yeah, everyone's going to play this dude because why wouldn't you? 6,100. He makes a ton of birdies. He's like top 5 in DK scoring over the last 24 rounds. He's gained a bunch of strokes. It's just so obvious at 6,100 that Sam Burns is going to provide a lot of points. And I'll be dead honest. Sam Burns is a player I would just eat the chalk with. He's probably going to get you a bunch of birdies. Like even if he's terrible off the tee and he finishes like 19th, he'll probably make enough birdies to matter at 6,100. So I'm not necessarily like out on him just because he's going to be the most popular player. All these guys are going to be popular. So, remember that. And the other thing with the ownership projections this week, and it's, as we talk about this range, it's pertinent because everyone's game theorying this week. If everyone's game theorying, they're like, oh, I don't need this much Sam Burns. All of a sudden, Sam Burns may not be quite as popular as you think. So that could happen as well. But, in terms of how I would rank these players, I think getting on Spieth, I like Spieth over Hatton slightly. Like I said, I like Burns. Griot's played well. I have really no reason to talk him down. Adam Schenk, I think, is really interesting. He's played well all year. Nick Taylor will probably be lower owned, but Schenk I would just give the edge to in terms of, how he's coming in and that stuff. But Nick Taylor at 5K flat, if he's not going to be that heavily owned, not that popular, and everyone's just going to kind of try and get the Schenk or Griot, Nick Taylor is a guy I would be pretty happy with if he was like, the 12th most owned player at 5K.
I like Nick Taylor a little bit last week, and he was a disaster, but
he was.
That's going to happen. He also lost 5 strokes putting. He did all sorts of bad things. There's a chance though that Nick Taylor plays horrible and he's actually still needed. Yeah. Because of the permutation that he allows you to get. This has an NFL showdown mentality of like, it's not just about if you like the guy, it's what does he allow you to do that maybe you couldn't with some other guys. And then it's pretty random if Nick Taylor gets a streak, pulls out for eagle, something random happen. Like that can happen to anybody. He's one of the few guys, if you asked me before this, name the 30 guys, I'm not sure I would have got it. I didn't know he was going to be here.
Yeah, look, if I hadn't looked at the end of last week and I
forgot that he won,
he would not have been. Would not have thought of him. He obviously got the win, but he hasn't done anything after. I think he did have another top finish at Phoenix, which probably helped him, but that probably would have been the name. Just looking at it, him or Taylor Moore, I probably would have been like, those guys didn't make it, and then they made it.
Honestly, the guy I would have forgot was Siwoo.
He's done absolutely nothing since the Byron Nelson. I've been Taylor
in Sony.
Yeah,
I forgot. That was in January.
His putter. Siwoo Kim. Can we talk about this? He's the inverse Lucas Glover. For people who don't know, he switched to a long putter, and his putter has legitimately tanked. He is the worst. He was always an up and down putter, but he had good stretches. He's fucking terrible. He cannot putt. Someone mentioned Siwoo Kim in the chat. That's my take on Siwoo Kim. He cannot fucking putt. So I'm sure he'll gain 10 strokes putting now this week, but he has really been struggling with that club, to the point where, like Ben said, he has not done anything for 2.5 months now. So,
well, I'll go back 6 months. In the last 6 months, that's mid-February, he has gained strokes putting in an event twice.
Yeah.
Twice in 6 months. What exactly you wanted more consistency, and he found it, but in the backwards way, consistently god awful with
he's
the
turned into Luke List.
What are you doing? He was a damn good player, there's no doubt, but yeah, it's really difficult when he's bleeding strokes every surface, it's not like a Bermuda issue. It's just bad. But he's still really as bad as he's been with the putter, he gains off the tee in every event. He's automatic off the tee.
When he figures it out, good things are going to happen. That's why I backed him at the U.S. Open, because I figure, okay, maybe this will be the week, and then it's just gotten worse since then. So But it's a good thing to mention. I mean, he is the long game is fine. It's probably the best it's ever been for him. But man, he's turned into like Russell Henley, like when he was just like, oh, look how good he's playing. But then it's just like, look at him miss the 2-foot putts as well. So anyways.
Couple questions from chat. Straka, no issue, like just a very normal, reasonable pay down option. He's got big things ahead for the Euros. He's had a damn good year. Straka is just a very, very reasonable play this week, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think Straka could easily bounce back. I mean, he's 50. I wish he was 6,400 just so a few less people would play him, but he's 5,400, but his upside is immense. I kind of feel the same way about him as I do Burns. Like those players they can get you like 3 streaks this week because just kind of the type of players they are. So they're pretty valuable. And I don't mind you're going to have to eat ownership with someone. I mean, down here is kind of where you do it this week, in my opinion. Again, I don't feel great about Hatton, but like Hatton and Spieth are the quality players down there too, and they're under 7K. And they're actually going to be lesser owned than like Strack and Burns too. So like maybe you double dip with Spieth and Hatton down there and try to avoid the other chalk. But certainly, Strack is not a bad play at all.
Couple, 3v3 to 2v2. We got Scotty, Hatton, Spieth versus Rory, Fleetwood, and Shank. I would ride with, Rory and Fleetwood side, but that's just me. Yeah. You've got 3 very reasonable plays no matter what. I like Shank, though. I think he can hold his own against Spieth and Hatton types. Yeah,
Spieth has been up and down. But, I mean, I would probably prefer the Scotty build myself, but man, it's unfortunately, like, we almost need the whole line. This is one of those weeks where you really need the whole lineup because, like, I don't, if you're like going crazy with the other parts of it or something, or maybe you're maxing out, like that's kind of a different story. But yeah, just how I feel about the players, I'd slightly prefer the Scotty build there.
And to that point, the next question we had was Fitzy and Nick Taylor or Fleetwood and Burns. Now, if you're trying to be not crazy, it's definitely Fleetwood and Burns for me. Yeah. But there is no doubt that Fitzy and Nick Taylor is if you're trying to win the $25, that's the type of combination that could do something crazy at much lower correlated ownership.
Yep, absolutely. Fitzy, I mean, I like straight up, again, if it's a big field, I would play Fitzy and Taylor. This is just the week where you just got to, again, not pay attention to what name you're clicking, in my opinion.
Well, let's see what we can do. Let's build a lineup again. The golf season is ending for about 5 minutes. We're not going to be going any here. And at Stokastic, doesn't matter what sport. And that is why I do want to say, if you want to get our PGA products, that's fantastic. But I'll give you a little alpha. You should get into the premium, the platinum, half off, so you get all the sports. Get college football. Get NFL. Get what's left of baseball in the start of a new golf season. It's in the link in the description. Half off your first month. You have all these different options in there. Again, there's just so much that we can do here at Stokastic. It's not just PGA. And certainly, I know we're all excited for NFL as the season gets started. But I'm more excited to build. Maybe somehow we build the winning lineup right here. What do you say, Mike? You want to pull up DraftKings with us and build a quick lineup? It looks like you're already ahead of the game. I love it. The floor is yours. Where are we going?
I mean, look, we talked him up. I don't know how we can't put Lucas Glover in this lineup.
You know what? Yeah, I want to be clear right now. We're trying to build a large field tournament lineup because when people are like, why did you play all these morons? I want to explain.
The names don't exist. The names do not exist. We're just playing salaries and what we're projecting for ownership here. Let's get a little game. Let's go. Lucas Glover.
All right. Lucas Glover is the first man into this lineup. I like it. So we've got Lucas Glover on the board. I'm going to go with Sanjay. He's not crazy, but you don't need to get crazy in all 6 spots. I just like Sanjay. I played him 2 weeks in a row. I think he's just playing great golf. 8,500 is just a solid price for him. Give me Sanjay M.
Okay. I'm trying to think like 3 steps ahead here. I think this is
going to be.
Okay, let's get
Sanjay some point we need one of the big dogs, obviously.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm debating. Let's get Jon Rahm in. Get Jon Rahm in. We'll take it from there. That's pretty reasonable. He's starting 6 under. Rory's won from there. Rahm's played well here before. Everyone's kind of counting him out. We've seen Rahm turn it on after like a semi not good performance. He could easily win here. He could easily shoot. Rahm could easily do what Viktor Hovland did last week. Let's put it that way. Easily.
Rahm could be in the lead going into the weekend.
Yeah. Yep.
The man is a dangerous man. Now, you mentioned during the show, actually, just because the guy's going to be popular, it doesn't mean that we can't play him. And right. I think that Sam Burns is just objectively a very solid play. I know everyone else does, but I'm going to put him in the lineup. We've got some weird guys in there already. It looks like, for obvious reasons, we're not going to have Scheffler or Rory, and getting rid of them will detach the correlation between Sam Burns and Scheffler and Sam Burns and Rory is massive this week.
Yep.
So getting Sam Burns shares without those two is almost like getting a different player. So give me Sam Burns as our 4th man in.
And again, I mean, like we have Sam Burns is projecting to be the highest owned player. We have Lucas Glover who's projecting to be the lowest owned player as well. Yeah. So, now again, what? This is why you need to get that full year membership to Stokastic, because we got all these weird events. They have ownership for everything. So,
oh man, this is
now the 7K range. I don't even know what's going on in the 7K range this week. It feels just like I've just glossed over what is happening. I don't want any part of Tony Finau. Morikawa is going to be pretty popular. I almost feel like you like Sanjay. I like Russell Henley just as much. I'm going to put Russell Henley in this lineup, and then you can go however you want. And this is nice because we still have 4 players for our last pick. So we haven't pigeon-soled ourselves where, we know this lineup's going to be duped. If you want to get crazy, you can go down to Nick Taylor. If you want to get semi-crazy, you can go Shank, or you can just finish it off. I mean, I think I know where you're going to go, but
I mean, there's
maybe I don't actually. I don't.
No, I mean, it would be poetic for the last pick on the last show to be Griot just cause. But I'm going to go to Adam Shank.
Yeah,
I think that Adam Shank.
That's what I was actually thinking.
And it's kind of fitting. Yeah, Griot. It should have been Griot, but to bring it full circle, when Griot's ball was floating down a viaduct, and I had to Google what that was, the man that was going to benefit, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, was in fact Adam Shank in that playoff. So I will go with Adam Shank and say, with a lineup, you leave $600, which is, I mean, that's nothing. I have lineups that leave like $2,000 on the table this week. You can do anything that you want. Whew. That is a beauty. Need a lot to bounce our way, but that's a type of lineup that could be very effective this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, you're playing off Lucas Glover, but you're still getting an elite player in, even though you burned that 9,700. Burns, to me, is just, I mean, Burns could finish 5th here and just really like carry it. I don't know. It's definitely, as far as we could have done far worse than this. Let's put it this way. I'm actually impressed that we did this well. I thought it was going to be just an abject
failure. Well, we made it, friends. We have a couple of things before we leave and I go watch the Yankees. I swear to God, they blow that game. But I just want to say it's been a long year of golf. There's a couple of things that make this show work. One, I'll give a shout out to Jordan Klein, who is on vacation. He's done a great job with us all year. It's been absolutely awesome. The chat, awesome. You guys come every single week for us, and it is appreciated. And then for me personally, Geoff Ulrich, one of my favorite people to do shows with. I consider you a friend, just a great guy all around. There is an announcement, though, a good announcement. It's a great thing, but I wanted to just give you a shout out. Geoff, tell the people the exciting news.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it is exciting. It's unfortunately a little bittersweet because I can't do this show with my guy I consider my friend, the guy, my favorite show of the week, unfortunately. So I'm going to be leaving Stokastic, handing off the reins to Ben, who I'm sure will find a very suitable, someone who loves Alex Noren as much as I do.
Of course.
And yeah, but I'll be doing full-time stuff for Matthew Berry's fantasy life, starting with football season. There'll still be golf content on my Twitter. I'm not going anywhere. I'm also in the Stokastic Discord, and they can't kick me out of there. So I'll just buy a membership.
We don't even know how.
And the Dynasty League. So I mean, I'm really not going anywhere. I just won't be on the show, and they're not paying me anymore. But I'll be around. I'll come bug Ben every one Wednesday night, once a month or something too. But yeah, no, man. I mean, this show was honestly awesome for me. The chat, the guys who showed up, I know you guys are, and sticking with us and stuff. I mean, I just wish I did a few more winners. I mean, could we have gotten a Tommy Fleetwood win this week? No, we didn't. But you know what? Whatever, man. You guys are in the right place. You need to get taken care of by who's ever coming in next. And
holding auditions.
Really appreciate though. Like seriously, in the chat, appreciate all you guys, man, showing up. You guys do make the show, like Ben said. It's not a joke. It's not something we just say just to get clicks or something. I mean, we genuinely enjoy doing the show because we're two people who wouldn't do it if we didn't. Trust me. So yeah, man. But I will be around. You can follow me on at the Fantasy Grind. I appreciate that. And like I said, I'll still be kicking around. So.
Yeah, it's no doubt. It's not a leaving the industry type thing. So, I mean, we know, obviously, I can't wait to check out everything you guys are doing over there. It's going to be good. I'm going to find some ways. I don't know Matthew Berry personally, but I'm going to find some ways to do a little guest appearances. We'll get you back on for the big events like the John Deere, the Barbasol, only the best here at Stokastic. But like I said, guys, we're not going anywhere in life at Stokastic. College football is starting, NFL is starting. There's just great content all across the industry, and we're so thankful you choose to spend your Wednesday nights with us. But for me, for Jeff, for my man Mike behind the glass, let's have a great Tour Championship. Stay tuned for the Ryder Cup and the swing season soon enough. But until next time, guys, good luck and joy, and we'll talk to you soon.